First off, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, the mercy of the grand predecessors, transmitting masters, lecturers, everyone here today for the opportunity to talk about, to give this topic on the 15 rules and regulations of the temple. And we talk about, some of the rules and regulations, or we mentioned it before, but didn't go into much detail yet. But so today, hopefully, we'll do that. Now, the subtitle here says the spirit of cultivation and practice, because, actually, a Chen, a senior in the Tao, once mentioned to me that, the Tao, the cultivation is, or the spirit of cultivation and the practice is in these temple rules and regulations. Okay. In other words, this is if we can practice them well, perform them well, basically apply them, know how to apply them in everything we do, then, that is showing that spirit of cultivation. And that is really, you can say that's like the backbone of cultivation. We can go through the motions of cultivation, of practice, but without the spirit, then it's kind of meaningless. It's just very superficial. Okay, so that's why we have to understand the spirit of it. All right. Okay. So how do we characterize in Chinese we say 修道精神, right? The spirit of cultivation. Okay. You can say that there are, there are two aspects to the practice and cultivation. Okay, so one, how we can kind of split things up. We can say, well, we're talking about quantity. Okay, we're talking about results. Okay, so is it, is the spirit of cultivation and practice in the quantity or the results of the practice, right? How many people did I ferry, right, bring to receive the Tao? How much, money did I donate, or how much whatever I donate, how much of my time, how much of my effort did I donate, or, how many katos or bows did I do, right? These are all quantities. These we can quantify, right? And this is definitely what, this is the visible part, right? This is very tangible. So most people, they're familiar with this, and so that's why they kind of glom onto this. They kind of cling to this idea of quantity, because that's very visible, right? you can quantify. You can how much what you did, right? You can say, I ferried this many people and I made this much donation, right? Because anything else is kind of it's hard to quantify, hard to grasp. And therefore, this is easy. And so a lot of people, they would kind of emphasize this, if you will, the quantity, and say the result, because this result is very tangible. Okay. Now, but this by itself is not. That's not the spirit. Okay, that's not really. It's not there, because you can have a robot, you can have someone who's just anyone who's just has a certain type of motivation that they can do all these things. Okay, they can produce do a lot of the quantity and achieve the results, but is it really does it end up being a true achievement? That's the question. Okay. Now, so we also want to talk about the other aspect, which is the quality. You can say, is it, the quality, the internal, the spirit of the practice, right? Say, did I practice it properly? Did I do it, or did I do it well? How sincere and diligent was my effort? Right? These are things that you can't really quantify as well. Maybe, if I did it properly, right, we can definitely see if things were done right or wrong or not. But there's kind of like maybe a gray area. There's what is the standard, right? We might have a minimum standard, okay, but so it's not like, oh, exactly, it is exactly this much, like, oh, I have to ferry exactly this number of people, or doing the bowing, the katoing. I mean, there is kind of like we say, there's like a standard way of doing it, okay, but there's still some variation. Everyone does it slightly differently, but there should be like a minimum. There's minimum guidelines, for example. And this will probably depend on the temple that you're in. So each temple, each Tao society will probably have their own slightly different standards. Okay, but that's okay. That's so really that's not really the important thing. The important thing is, am I sincere when I kato? Am I thinking of all sorts of things, right? I mean, when we kato, it's like a meditation in motion. Okay, to borrow someone's words, someone once described it as meditation in motion, right? So, but so how well am I doing it, right? Am I really doing it properly? Am I doing it out of from my true heart? Okay, am I doing it? Okay, so that is, so you can say, between these two, the quantity or results, this you can say it's, for the most part, we can call that external. And the quality side, we can call it internal, although, of course, we can see it also on the outside, the quality. Okay, but that's really the spirit of it, okay, is more of the intangible side of things, the intangible aspect. And that, okay, sorry about that. There was a problem with the mic. Okay, so let me start over on this slide here. Okay, so how do we characterize the spirit of cultivation, right? So again, we talked about quantity versus, well, this is kind of, you hear this a lot too, quantity versus quality, okay? And that happens out in society, and it's the same in the temple too, actually, in cultivation. You still have these two. So some people, they emphasize quantity, others, but really what Holy Teacher is saying is really, and we'll get to that basically it's quality that really matters. Sure, the quantity certainly also matters, but you need the quality. Without the quality, then the quantity doesn't matter. Okay, let's put it that way. On the other hand, you can say, oh, it's all about quality of spirit, but if you don't have any result, no quantity at all, then, well, that's, I won't say it's completely, useless or doesn't count, because at least the internal, the spirit quality is inside, and you always have that, right? You have that. So, so that's at least something that you already have. Okay, but, all right, so yeah, we don't want to overemphasize, let's put it that way, overemphasize quantity or actual results, because there's, heaven is looking at our heart and mind, okay? The results, yes, they should follow, okay? But the primary thing is looking at our heart and mind, okay? And if we apply our heart and mind, if we apply that spirit of cultivation and practice, then we should get some results, okay? How much the quantity of result depends a lot. I mean, there are many things that we can't control, right? Sometimes the affinity, the karma, all these are factors, right? Not just of our own, affinity and karma, but affinity and karma of other people. And so these are all factors that we may not necessarily have control over. And so that will definitely affect the quantity and the end result. But we have to show that we put in the effort, right? That we are sincere. Okay, so that's really what heaven wants to see, right? Because that's really what's going to be more, you can say it's everlasting, that sincerity, that spirit. Okay, so now the spirit includes, you can say, our mindset, our attitude, right? Our mental effort, whether we have, you're doing things with zeal, vigor, diligence, right? So we do want to also understand, okay, so we talk about, okay, so we have these temporal rules and regulations, proprieties. Why do we need to follow these, right? We were told that we should follow these rules and regulations. Now, do I just blindly go do it, or do I understand why I should follow them? Okay, so it's always best, of course, to understand why we should do it. Why. Some people just when they bring them to receive the Tao, just say, okay, hey, now you should go and ferry other people. Well, maybe I think we need to, they want to understand why should I have to do that, right? So we still have to explain. So it's better for people to understand what they're doing, why they need to do it. Okay, now that's obviously, that's kind of establishing a rationale for doing something, and we don't necessarily want to depend on that either, having a rationale. But on the other hand, we can't completely rely on, let's say, blind faith or just faith alone. If our faith is not strong enough, then we might waver and we might back out later on and stop. Okay, so always having a rationale is always, it's better than nothing. Okay, let's put it that way, right? Now, okay, so the quantity aspect, or the external results, many people, they're motivated by that, and that's what they emphasize. So quantity is, but it's an external motivation factor. Okay, it comes from the outside, this motivation, right? Saying, because I can see that, I can, or you can say it's the form. Okay, it has a form, and so, but we cannot really, solely rely on external motivation, because anything that's external or based on forms, they're not enduring and subject to change, right? Whether that's due to external conditions or even our own mental state. Okay. Now, so we should have internal motivation, right? So because the internal motivation can be enduring if we maintain the will, the resolve, the determination, right? So, for example, we talked about vows in the past. Hold on a second. I can't see the slides. Okay. All right. So vows are a form of internal motivation that keeps us going. Okay, so vows are not external, even though we might say, oh, okay, I vow to ferry, so many people. Okay, although that part of it is, the what you're trying to achieve there is something external, and you're trying to get some quantity, but the vow itself is internal, right? The spirit, if you will, that goes along with doing that, fulfilling the vow, that's internal. And without that, that's really the driving force, really, the vow. Okay, it's not the fact that, I'm going to get so many merits from ferrying that many people, okay, that I can pay off some karmic debts. That's not the driving factor. Okay, the driving factor is coming from within. So that's the internal aspect, and that's really what's more important, and that is what will be everlasting. And that's if we can, willingly, if we are able to make vows, then they should. Obviously, we know how sincere we are, right, in making a vow, and whether we want to achieve or accomplish or fulfill that vow. Okay, so assuming that when we make that vow, we are sincere and we are willing and we will do our best to fulfill the vow, then there's nothing that's going to stop us. It doesn't matter what happens externally, even if we can't ferry, let's say I said, oh, I'm going to ferry 100 people, but I can't achieve that. Heaven is not going to say, oh, sorry, you didn't achieve your goal, right? Your objective of 100 people. So too bad. That's not the way it works. Okay. What matters is that we were sincere and we did put in that effort and we tried our best. Right? That is really the most important thing. So that's the spirit of practice and cultivation. Okay. All right. Just like 18th patriarch, right? Sujun, right? He at the time he tried to. There was a requirement to ferry 100 people. If he wanted, for him to, he wanted to uplift his deceased father. And try as he might, he could only ferry 64 people. So does that mean, well, that's too bad? No, heaven was merciful and said, okay, that's fine. 64 it is. And, you can uplift your father, because you tried your best. Okay. Like I said, these things we cannot, even though it's like we set it as a goal, because of those external factors that are out of our control, we cannot necessarily achieve that goal. Just like if you say the bodhisattvas, they want to save all sentient beings, right? Obviously, that's not going to happen in this right now, in this cycle that we're in this kalpa. They've had these vows for how many kalpas? We don't know. And how many kalpas is it going to take for that to happen? We don't know. It may never. But that doesn't mean that, it's really, so the spirit is not in that final result there. The spirit is not there. Okay. It's not in that quantity. So the spirit is actually in that resolve, that will, that vow to do it, and putting in that effort to do it. Okay. Okay. So you say, we have the practice part of it, right? So we have temple proprieties, rules, the duties and obligations that we have. So plus, all these are basically, we need to put in some external effort, right, into doing it. These things. Okay. Then we have the spirit of the practice, which also includes our conscience, our mindset, and the internal effort. Okay. And so therefore, so we have to combine the two. So if we just practice, right? Oh, okay. Say you just follow the instructions and do these things, but it doesn't really mean anything, right? Without the internal side of things, right? That's just the external. Now, so how can we help ourselves to better, improve or emphasize or this spirit of the practice, right? So first, we have to learn to practice properly. So the rules and regulations, in terms of in this case, we talk about the proprieties, right? The rituals that we have in the temple, whether, starting from when you enter the temple, you take the bows, right? The kato for the arrival, what we call the arrival bows, right? And then also before class, right? There's or there could be an offering, right? A ceremony, and also the bows that we make before the class and after the class, things like that. Okay, so these are what we generally call the proprieties in the temple, and so we need to learn how to do them properly. So like katoing, the bowing, I said earlier that there's you can say there's a minimum standard, if you will, of how you're supposed to do it, which may vary depending on the temple, but there's generally an acceptable minimum standard, and of course we can kind of do better, right? Do better than that. Now, anytime I see I see people doing the katos, everyone does it differently, and they, so depending on how they were taught, who taught them, whatever. But you can see that. But really, what's important though, besides meeting the minimum requirements, minimum standard, is that we do it properly on the inside, not just the form, the external form. Okay, so we have to learn the external form plus the inside. What's happening inside when we are doing it, right? So, like I said, with the kato, it's basically like a meditation in motion, if you will. So our mind should not think of anything, right? Not have any other thoughts. The other rituals or ceremonies, we should focus on what we're doing. Focus on our role in that ritual or ceremony. What we're supposed to do or say, right? If we're constantly looking around and kind of thinking, kind of like caring about what other people are doing or not doing, then we're likely to forget and not perform our part well. Okay, so we should focus on what we're supposed to be doing. All right. Okay, so so I did mention this already. We should learn why we practice, right? Don't just take it on faith. We understand the rationale, the reason behind it. And there is a reason, there is a rationale, if you will, behind all the practices, the ceremonies, the proprieties, even the rules and regulations themselves. Okay, so that's, at least when we can understand that, we have a better foundation to work off of, and that will hopefully keep us, at least keep us on track so that we continue to do it. Okay, that we'll do it with the proper attitude. Okay, that we'll do these things with the right attitude, the right mindset, rather than saying, what they keep telling me to do these things, and it's just like if we feel reluctant, we say, why keep thinking, why do I have to do this? Then obviously that's how can we're not manifesting the spirit of that practice. Okay, all right. Now, so this is what I say, really our ultimate achievement is the quality times the quantity, okay, or the spirit times the result. Okay, so this is obviously an overgeneralization, and I don't know how heaven will determine our achievement exactly, but we can say this, that it does involve these two aspects. Okay, so obviously, if I was saying earlier, if the quantity, we have great, a lot of quantity result, but there's no quality, there's no real spirit in doing it and achieving that, then really the ultimate achievement is also very low. Okay. Whereas, so just like, for example, I'll get to the example. But, and then on the other hand, if our quality, let's say we do something very well, we do it, it's basically, we set the standard, basically a high standard for doing things when we're doing things, okay, whether it's the proprieties or other things. But we don't really have any results to show for it, then again, if if the quantity or the result is zero, then this achievement is almost zero too. Well, it's not exactly zero, okay, because this, at least this is an internal quality which you always, hopefully you retain, whereas the quantity is something you get from the outside. Okay, so at least this is something that you already have. So that's why some people would say, to emphasize the inner side, like the inner cultivation, as opposed to outer cultivation, because at least, even if you don't have that result or the quantity of results, that you already have that inside the inner cultivation, you have that achievement on the inside. Okay, so, and that hopefully you always retain that. Whereas the external stuff, well, yeah, if you can do if you do the external without the internal, then it's again that's heaven is looking at the inside, your heart and mind. Okay, so that's the inside, and they don't really care. I mean, because you might have gotten these quantities or results by any means possible, right? Even breaking the rules to do it, and so therefore that would be highly discounted or even not even count at all. Okay, so all right, so example, right? They say, well, we establish a temple. It's I don't know. I think it's 1,000 merits or something like that. They say, well, yeah, actually, I feel that. Well, they say, right, to return to heaven, or to achieve, attain Tao. What we say, attain Tao. Okay, so have achievement in heaven, right? So we have to have, what is it, 3,000 merits and 800 achievements. Okay, so you ask, well, what is that? What does that mean? And I say, well, that's a good question, because it really doesn't matter for us. I mean, people really shouldn't talk about those numbers, because the numbers are not very meaningful for us. Okay, because we really can't tell. I mean, ultimately, heaven is the one that's counting, if they are counting at all, right? Again, 1,000 merits isn't necessarily 1,000 merits, right? 1,000 merits might end up being 10 merits, or it might be more. Again, that's we can't just look at the quantity, the external, the result. Okay, so a temple so in this case, establishing a temple. Okay, yeah. Supposedly it's a lot of merit, but there are some conditions to that, right? When we establish a temple, it's for the rest of our lives. Okay, we cannot say, oh, one day we say, this is too much of a pain, forget it. I'm gonna give up on that, right? I'm not gonna have the temple anymore. Okay, well then you didn't get your 1,000 merits. The merits, then it becomes zero. Okay, basically, right? Or I established a temple, and there's no, you don't do anything, right? It's just for personal. Morning, evening incense offering. I don't ferry people. I don't use it as a place to maybe to encourage and guide Daokin or whatever, right? Then it's no longer, it's not 1,000 merits. Okay, so because it wasn't really, you didn't establish it and you didn't use it the way it should be used, right, as a temple, right? Another example, right? You can ferry, let's say, 100 people. Okay, so in this example, we're comparing these two. Let's say you ferry 100 people versus you ferry one person. Now, if we just look at the quantity, you say, well, yeah, of course. Yeah, we ferry 100 people, that's more merit, okay, than ferrying one person. However, if we ferry 100 people, but these are people that we just dragged into the temple, we brought them in, and we don't even know them, strangers, whatever, but they kind of may be willing to receive the Tao, but they never show up in the temple again. They never come to class. They don't do anything. In fact, they ignore your calls, and so basically none of these 100 people are cultivating, right? So what kind of merit do you think you're going to get here? Supposedly you get, I don't know what the number is, but you get some merit for each person that you ferry. All right. So, but in this case, you're not going to have any merit. Now, what will count is maybe the effort that you put in. Okay, but like I said, if you really didn't bother to say, find these people who have that affinity, who have that interest, who are willing to cultivate, then maybe we didn't really put in the effort, really. Okay, so we just randomly trying to get people to receive the Tao. Now, compare that to, let's say, only ferry one person. But this person is very sincere. this person is willing to cultivate, and they, after receiving the Tao, they come to the temple, and they come to class, they learn, and they progress in their cultivation. And ultimately, this person will probably achieve, okay? They'll have some achievement, because they will then also probably ferry other people and perform merits and cultivate their virtues. So in the end, who has more merit? I mean, if we really want to look at the final achievement, it's this person who ferried this one other person, only one person, versus the person who ferried 100. Okay. Again, so we're talking about quality, right? So this is where quality really matters, right? Okay, so that's very important. That's something that we really need to understand, because you might hear, even I'll just say, even seniors and other people say the other thing, say, oh, quantity. That's really more important. It's true that, yes, we are in the white era, which means this is the universal salvation period, which this is really a chance in a lifetime for people to receive the Tao and cultivate and return to heaven, transcend the cycle of life and death. But again, a lot of these other factors come into play: their affinity, the karma, all these things. Okay, and so we can't force people. So dragging 100 people in, you're essentially forcing people. And I've been in the temple long enough. I've seen so many. Most of the time, that's the way it is. People feel like they're kind of like forced to receive the Tao, and therefore, and it shows in the results actually, where you don't see them again. Okay, so that's heaven does not care about that. Okay, they don't want that. Actually, heaven, what they're looking for, or holy teacher, what he's looking for, there are people who will stay in the Tao, who will cultivate and become heaven's helpers, right? And that's so that we can spread the Tao even more. All right, so it doesn't, so that's this is definitely something that we have to be clear about. Okay. All right. So what embodies the spirit of cultivation and practice then? Okay, so as you saw in the subtitle, right? It's basically the temple rules and regulations. Okay, so that's why these are so important, right? Without these temple rules and regulations, and if we don't basically apply them well, then we're lacking. We're really deficient in the spirit of cultivation practice. Okay, so temple rules and regulations, basically, they're principles and guidelines for cultivation and practice, right? They're relatively broad. They're not. See, these are not like precepts, right? Precepts are very relatively narrow. Like say, oh, do not kill, or you have to be vegetarian, or things like that. So those are relatively narrow. These are slightly more broader, and because these are applied in basically, well, later on, the Holy Teacher says that. I mean, they're applied in everything that we do. Okay, so this is kind of like the overall. That's why it's the spirit of cultivation and practice. It's in all of our cultivation and practice. We apply these rules and regulations. Okay. Okay. So, and then it's also like this sets the direction for us in terms of our cultivation practice to achieve Buddhahood. Okay, so we need to have that proper direction. Without this direction, without the direction or the guide that is set by these rules and regulations, then it's more likely that we will not achieve Buddhahood. All right. Okay. So, and then there's also, of course, temple proprieties. Now, in Chinese, we usually use these two together. We say 佛规礼节. We talk about, I mean, as one, item or one, thing. So, the combination of these things. Now, whereas the temple rules and regulations are more like guidelines and principles, the temple proprieties are kind of specific practices like rituals, the etiquette and manners in the temple. Okay, and so that's so it's slightly different. This is, but at the same time, we can still, for example, apply the rules and regulations when we are doing the proprieties as well. Okay. Now, okay, so the temple rules, regulations, and proprieties are the ladder for us to climb to heaven. All right, so this is important. That's to climb up to heaven, we need to know how to follow these rules, regulations, how to apply them, and also to be able to perform, practice those proprieties. Okay. Now, of course, people wish that, well, hey, now why isn't there an escalator to heaven or an elevator, right? Just take us up there. Hey, well, we have to walk the walk ourselves, unfortunately. We have to climb the ladder ourselves, right? But at least this ladder is there if we choose to climb it. If we don't choose to climb it, well, again, that's our choice. We are responsible for our own choice, decisions and actions. So hopefully everyone decides that, yes, it's better to climb the ladder and do whatever it takes to climb that ladder. Okay, so I hope that's, that's how everyone feels. Otherwise, if we choose not to, then we really won't get very far in cultivation. Okay, and definitely we won't have that achievement. All right. Okay, so basically these temple rules, regulations, and plus the proprieties, they are a basic requirement for achievement, right? As we can see that the proprieties are part of the 4 courses of Tao cultivation that we've talked about before. Our mindset, our attitude is also very important. That's part of the 5 requirements for returning to heaven. Okay, so you can say this is part of the spirit of the practice, right? And so and then if we look at the first 2 vows when you complete a Dharma class, right? This is what we encourage the class members to take, these 2 vows, and they're very broad, general, and it's pretty much should be achievable. But so the first one, to emphasize the saintly over the worldly, that's part of the 15 rules, temple rules and regulations. That's one of them. Okay. And also the other one of giving of material things, and also of the Dharma or teachings. Okay, and that's the 6 paramitas. So here it's interesting because then you have basically 2 aspects, right? One is kind of the principles or the guidelines of cultivation, and then this is kind of more a specific practice, like in the 6 paramitas. Okay, the charity and giving. Okay, so but once again, keep in mind that these temple rules and regulations, because they are principles and guidelines, they apply to anything we do. So these can also apply to the giving as well. Okay, so this is that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so for example, let's put it this way. This emphasizes saintly. I use saintly, sometimes say holy, or let's see. Yeah, I guess the holy, or divine, if you will. Okay, over the worldly or mundane. But actually, we'll get to the. Let's see. I don't know. We'll get to that one yet. But okay, so like giving, for example, yes, although we can do charity, giving to anyone, right? We can help anyone, right? And that's all good. That's all good. But that's mundane giving, right? Mundane charity. I'm saying like, we donate to these organizations that they help save the environment. They save animals, things like that. that's all very good. That's all very good. But as cultivators, so we can do those things, but we should also still emphasize the saintly over the worldly. Okay, so those things, that type of charity is worldly. Although you might say, yeah, saving sentient beings, animals, right? Yeah, okay. Okay, and then so that might be somewhat like the saintly, but more of the saintly is, yeah, we're doing things in let's say in the process of propagating the Tao or things like that, or practicing the Tao. Okay, where we may be, like, so for example, ferrying people to save their souls, basically. That is more on the saintly side, right? So we don't necessarily say, we don't necessarily say, give them a handout, say, to help them get a meal or whatever, but we want to save their soul is more important. That would be the saintly, okay? So, but it's not to say that we disregard, that we don't do the other type, worldly charity type of things, okay? So that, whatever we are able to do, we should do, okay? All right, those are all good things, okay? All right, now, okay, so let's get to the first one. Now, these are basically based on what Holy Teacher's explanation for these rules and regulations, all right? The first one, say, respect the Buddha, or respect Buddha. Okay, so basically, respect Buddhas, immortal saints, and sages, right? So this is obviously that's what most people would think. Okay, but these are all external, right? We say we respect the Buddhas. That's why we have these like we have these statues in the temple. That we to show that, okay, we respect the Buddhas, we make offerings, things like that. Okay, and usually when we have a need, right, we seek the external Buddha for help and guidance. Okay, and that's like the first thing that most people would do, right? But Holy Teacher asks, why don't we ask the Buddha within? Ask our Buddha nature. Okay, so when we have a need, when we have a problem, when we need something, some help, why don't we ask our own Buddha nature instead of asking the external Buddha for help? Because actually, the Buddha nature, is the Buddha. Okay, so there's no difference between the external Buddha and our own Buddha nature, right? So, say, why don't we ask our own Buddha nature? Okay, so basically we want to respect this. What this is saying, yes, on the surface it's respecting the external Buddha, but really you can say the spirit of it is is really respecting one's internal Buddha, the Buddha nature, right? The real Buddha is in our heart and mind, the Buddha nature, what we call the Buddha nature, right? As long as we do things without strain from the Buddha nature or the conduct of a Buddha, following the true principles and not going against the conscience, and that is respecting the Buddha. Okay, that's what Holy Teacher says. Right? So basically, if we follow our conscience, we are following the Buddha within. Right? If we conduct ourselves according to what a Buddha would do, then we are the Buddha. So, and then obviously that means we are respecting the Buddha. Okay, so obviously we wouldn't, if we are doing things against what a Buddha would do, then that's showing disrespect for the Buddha. Not the external Buddha, we're showing disrespect for our own Buddha, the Buddha nature. All right, so don't forget that we all have that Buddha nature, and that is really the Buddha that we really should be looking for and looking at and asking, okay? Because the external, those are just forms. We become too attached to those external forms. And then when we do that, the danger is that we lose the essence, okay? Because we're focused on the form and we lose the essence. So if we don't look outside, we look inside, we're looking directly at the essence. There's no form. It's just essence. And that's what we want. Okay. Now, in talking about this, okay, so Holy Teacher, he compared Yanhui and Zhenzi. These are two of the main disciples of Confucius, right? Yanhui is actually probably the youngest of the main disciples. Okay, now Master Yen, okay, Yanhui, he always kept in mind and had sincere faith in the Buddha nature, right? Because he knew that life is short and unpredictable. So he seized every opportunity to perform kind deeds, accumulate merits, and establish his virtue, right? And instead of cultivating and seeking externally, he wholeheartedly observed and cultivated the Buddha nature within, right? Eliminating his faults and bad temper, okay? So he achieved a level of basically not getting angry and not repeating a mistake. Now, this is actually very hard to achieve. The not getting angry actually didn't mean necessarily that he never got angry. It's just that it was, if he ever got angry, it was appropriate. Okay, it was appropriate anger. Someone deserved that or needed that, whatever. But generally, didn't get angry. All right, he wouldn't get angry just out of selfish. Because his ego was hurt or whatever. He had no ego, all right? So it's not that. So this is, all right? And then not repeating a mistake, certainly, the things that he did, if he ever made a mistake, he would correct it and not repeat it again. But more than that, right, that's the external. But on the internal side, he would not have those thoughts that lead to making those mistakes, right? So that's even one step even higher, that he doesn't have those thoughts, right? So the inside, in his mind, his heart and mind, he would not make a mistake. All right, so that's very very high achievement, right? So Holy Teacher asks, if he had not cultivated inwardly, then how could he have achieved the status of a great saint at the age of 32? Right, he passed away at 32. And basically, his title given later was Fu Sun, which is like you can say it's like a restoration sage, but saint. But it's like he's like a copy of Confucius. Okay, so he's basically as good as Confucius. Okay, and so that his title, or how he is revered, is higher than Zhenzi's. Okay, Zhenzi's, he has so Holy Teacher, he talks about Zhenzi. Okay, so Master Zhen, right? He cultivated by way of the three introspections, right? We've talked about these before, and so have I been loyal or wholehearted in my dealings with others, or dealing with matters? Have I been sincere or trustworthy with my friends? Right? Have I practiced or reviewed what I have learned? Okay, so Master Zheng, right? He cultivated outwardly, whereas Master Yen cultivated inwardly, and this is reflected in the final achievement. Now you may say, well, yeah, why is outward? Okay, so Master Yen, he did not see these. Why is this out? Okay, so why is this outward? Okay, it's because this is conditioned on the outside, right? On the people and the matters that he's dealing with. So that's all conditional, right? Whereas Master Yen, it didn't matter. He just self-reflected and corrected himself and looked within himself to find that Buddha nature, to, well, not just find it, but to really manifest that Buddha nature, okay? And obviously, when we say outward and inward, it's, the outward, there's also the inside, the inner aspect, of course. So there's loyalty or whatever, that's on the inside as well. But it's expressed on the outside, right? It's the same as the sincerity and trustworthiness. Okay, so there's both aspects. But you can say the difference here is that Master Zheng, he based his cultivation on the external conditions, right? Now, basically, I would also say, well, if you look at how these are phrased, right? Have I been loyal? Okay, now, and have I practiced? Okay, so, he didn't ask, how well did I do it, or have I done my utmost, right? So that then is a bit more of a qualification, a quality aspect, right? And this is more of a what, am I doing it or not? But what about the quality aspect, right? Am I really was I really doing it to my utmost? Okay, so that's where Yen Hui, Master Yen, he would do that. Okay, so that's kind of there's a difference here, right? Now, by cultivating inward, right, with the Buddha nature as the master, this level is naturally higher than by cultivating outward and focusing on the external, right? The difference appears minor or subtle, but the end result can be quite different, okay? Now, the outward cultivation is still relative, right? It's reliance on external conditions. You can say that maybe it's a response or a reaction to the external conditions, right? Whereas the inward cultivation is, you can say it's absolute, right? There's no reliance on external conditions. It's self-initiated, okay? So even before those conditions arise, that you're already doing it, right? So that I don't have to actually, I don't have to ask, oh, have I been loyal to, in my dealings? We already, because we are, you can say, this is more the self-initiated, is like this, we are self-aware, we are we are mindful, we are aware, okay? And that we will basically do our utmost, be, our most loyal, our most sincere, our most trustworthy, all right? So that in that sense, it is absolute. It's not based on the external conditions, right? Just like we say, compassion is not, it's not conditional. It's like we don't have to see that sentient beings are suffering to have this or to want to express or manifest this compassion, right? People, when we talk about like sympathy, that usually appears when we see something. Oh, I see something. I have pity on someone, on something, or an animal, or something. That's when that sympathy arises. But compassion is, as you can say, it's non-conditional. It's absolute. It comes from within, and it's always there. Okay, it should always be there. All right. So now. Oops. Oh, okay. So Master Yen, right? So he was always working on eliminating his bad temper and faults, right? So we in Chinese, right? We always say "gai mao bing qi pi qi," right? These are the 6 words of cultivation, really. And so Yen Hui, Master Yen, he did that. He fulfilled his inner virtue and seized every opportunity to do kind deeds and practice the Tao. Okay, so those are very important. And these are, you can say, these are pretty much internal, right? We don't have to say, oh, if I got angry at someone and then they gave us some feedback. They say, hey, let us know. That, in other words, we were not aware, right? So Master Yen, he was always aware that, whether he was about to get angry or not, and he would not get angry. Okay, prevent that. Now, so basically, and then also being vigilant and cautious. Okay, so he was always very vigilant, cautious, and fearful, as if walking on thin ice or on the edge of a cliff, right? Afraid of making the slightest mistake. So always self-reflecting with awareness and mindfulness as the teacher. Okay, so right. So that's why he's always very mindful, right? So that's why he can basically achieve not making the same mistake twice, or not repeating a mistake, right? If we are mindful, if we are aware, then we will definitely catch ourselves before doing anything. Whereas Zhenzi, Master Zhen, he was not quite at that level, right? He was, every day he would ask himself, oh, was I loyal? Was I, sincere, and all these things, right? So but that was after the fact. Okay, so Master Yen, he's doing it before. It's like prevention. Okay, so that's always better. So that's why Master Yen becomes such an extraordinary great saint in his short lifetime. Master Zeng, now he also cultivated the mind, but he emphasized the external dealings with people and matters. Therefore, his achievement as a saint was slightly less. Right. All right. All right. So basically, Holy Teacher is saying, okay, so we want to constantly maintain the middle way, okay, to recognize the truth and cultivate in actuality. To truly cultivate, okay, to proceed if principled. So this 事理则进, right? 非理则退. Okay, so basically, this is saying that if it follows the true principles, then we should proceed. If not, then we should retreat. Okay, we should not go down that path. We should not do it. Okay. So when we have the utmost respect for the Buddha within, that's like when we have humbled and forgotten the self. Okay, remember that ego, that idea of the self, the I. So we have only the Tao in our heart and mind. No ego, no self, right? Then we have reached the level of basically non-subjectivity and non-duality, right? Those are very important. We say wu wo or wu ni wo. Okay, so that's like the part of the four images, right? The me, the I, the you. Okay, so there's no subjectivity, and then there's no sife, right? So that's no duality. Okay, so when we have a clear heart and mind without desires, right, then completely forgotten the self, right, then a heart and mind of heaven without subjectivity is when disciples' Buddha nature is revealed, and that is the true respect Buddha. Okay, so Holy Teacher is saying that's obviously this is a very high level of achievement to get to this point of non-subjectivity, non-duality. But remember, this is what we've been talking about, right, in the Heart Sutra and before in the classes before that. It's all about this. This is what we call the Buddha nature, the study of the Buddha nature. Okay, so that's why that's very important, right? Holy Teacher. Remember last week I mentioned that was in one of the reunion scripture from our Chenan. He mentioned that Holy Teacher is saying that this is very important, that we have to do this. So if we can achieve this, then definitely, because this is like a foundation, right? You can say this is the inner side of cultivation, the spirit of cultivation. That's the backbone of cultivation, and what our achievement is going to be based on that. And so that is why it's so important, okay, that we understand all that and that we are able to put it into practice, right? Okay, whoops. What happened here? Okay, well, this is obviously... yeah, all right. So you can say also, respecting Buddha is also respecting life. So, right, because Buddha has infinite compassion for all and loves all living beings, right? The Buddha nature is life-giving, right? Without the Buddha nature, there would not be life. So to respect Buddha is to respect all living beings. Therefore, to respect Buddha is not to kill, right? So you can kind of reach this conclusion from saying respecting Buddha or respecting the Buddha, okay? So, we should not stray from the Buddha nature and do not deviate from the conduct of a Buddha, right? So the foundation, so this first one here, 尊敬仙佛, respect the Buddha, is actually the foundation for the rest of the rules and regulations, and the spirit of cultivation and practice. Okay, so if we respect the Buddha, then it is only natural that we would cultivate and practice with the proper spirit. And so, really, if we truly understand this, respecting the Buddha, or what this means, or the spirit of this, and we cultivate and practice according to the spirit of this, a lot of the other things, just like not killing, right, essentially becoming a vegetarian or vegan, is part of that, right? It would only be natural that we would do that. Okay, so all right. See, I guess I didn't get as far as wanted, but okay. Well, anyways, next time I think we should be able to finish it next time, though. All right. So I think that's because the time is almost up. We'll end it here. If I had said anything wrong or not satisfactory, I asked the Buddhists for forgiveness, and also asked transmitting masters and lecturers for their corrections. Thank you.